You know, there's this saying that every crisis is an opportunity. But if every opportunity comes with a financial incentive, then there is incentive to make crises.
Why? What did Cracker Barrel do? Well, they changed their logo.
In order to understand what makes it controversial.
There's brown M&M, whose high heels.
Her new campaign with American Eagle just launched where the tagline is Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
The libs are trying to ruin Cracker Barrel.
So I've spent the last month thinking a lot about the incentives that make up content creation and influencing. And I have to think about this partly as a content creator, right? I have to think about what are algorithms looking for when I generate content, what increases my profitability. Right now it's nothing. As a content creator and thinking about these incentives that make up content creation, it's made me a lot more sympathetic, seems like the wrong word, but understanding of how we got into our current media environment. And when I say that, I'm really thinking about why are content creators, specifically in the political space, so angry?
Middle-class millennials, bougie, soulless, sterile apartment.
Or Candace Owens is an evil cunt.
It didn't educate her much because she really doesn't know much.
Do you ever notice this? That like a lot of content creators, whether they're on the left or the right, although primarily on the right, they are very angry. They leverage things like anger, fear, and use things like rage bait in order to, in their content, as part of their content. And that's what I used to think, right? I used to think that their content was this rage. Their content was all this anger and disgust up to society.
I hate it. I hate when they do stuff like that.
But when I started to think about it from the perspective of a content creator, all the anger actually makes a lot of sense. What I've come to discover is that there is an incentive to be angry. There's an incentive to create rage bait and misinformation on the internet. And why is that? And that's what I want to talk about today. By the way, again, this episode is heavily inspired by a blog post that I posted on Substack. You can check it out, link down below. And again, if you want to see more videos on technology and policy, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. So let's think about these incentives. I'm a content creator. Why do I make the content that I create? What is my end goal, right? I think it is a fair and innocent assumption to make that people get into content creation with an authentic reason. Maybe they are passionate about a policy position. Maybe they think that some problem is not getting enough attention. These origins may start authentic, but if you choose to build a career out of content creation, your incentives start to be shaped by the environment in which you exist. It stops becoming about authentically pushing your agenda, and it starts becoming about how do I make a sustainable living out of this? And I think it's important to recognize this, that at the end of the day, every content creator, political, apolitical, they need to make money. They need to be generating revenue. They need to be profitable. They need to put food on their table. Once we recognize this, we need to ask ourselves, how do they make money? For most of content creators, it's very simple. It's ad revenue.
So if you go to nordvpn.com,
go to genucel.com/Walsh.
When I found out about Factor,
Check out Cove Beer.
Consider today's sponsor Incognate.
Ad revenue is the most basic form of making money as a content creator. Yes, there are other ways you can make money. You can sell merchandise, you can get sponsorship, which is still another form of selling ad space. Or if you are big enough in your echo chamber, you can do physical live events, right? Like you can do a speaking gig at a school or something like that. But that's really the exception, right? That's really for the 1% of content creators that make a lot of money and have become micro celebrities in their community. But for the majority of content creators, the only way you really make money is through ads. And the amount that you make off of ads entirely depends on the viewership that your content gets. Unless you're part of Nebula or something, no content creator is on a fixed income. The amount of money they make month to month depends on the viewership that their videos receive. And this is the main thing, right? For a YouTuber, subscriber count doesn't actually matter. The more subscribers you have increases the chance that your video gets distributed to more eyes, but it actually doesn't correlate to viewership. This is the same thing with TikToks and Shorts, right? It doesn't matter about how many followers you have. The only metric that matters is how many people viewed your video and for how long. So we've acknowledged two things, right? Content creators ultimately need to make money. This is an incentive for them. Second, the way they make that money is primarily through ad revenue. And the way that money is made is through viewership. Based on that, we know that content creators have a direct incentive to increase viewership. That's actually the main thing, because everything else is downstream of that. The main incentive of a content creator is to drive viewership. When they are not spending time creating new content, they should be spending time promoting existing content or trying to draw more eyes to their pages or their accounts to increase viewership. So now we have to ask ourselves, what is the easiest way to drive engagement? What is the easiest way to get more viewers to our content? Well, the answer to that is rage bait and misinformation. Misinformation usually involves posting something really short-sighted or myopic or one-sided, something that doesn't show the whole story. This kind of content invites other people to try to complete that story. Maybe they are someone who recognizes that that nuance is missing and they post a comment saying that that nuance is missing. Maybe they think your post is dumb, right? And they want to tell you how much of an imbecile you are. Or maybe they have just as a short-sighted view of the world and end up sharing and liking your content. The algorithm doesn't differentiate between this positive and negative response. Engagement is engagement at the end of the day, and all engagement is good for these platforms. So they propagate them. And theoretically, in a world where you have fewer players and fewer content creators, there is space for people to make, smart posts, smart advertising, and smart engagement to lure viewers. But the reality is the content creator space has gotten extremely competitive. Regardless of which domain you participate in, yes, politics is one. Let's say you are a tech product reviewer, right? Probably the number one tech product reviewer is Marquis Brownlee, right? Yes, he's big and he's important, but the reality is that he makes up actually a really small percentage of tech reviewers. He gets a lot of viewership, and that makes him a lot of money through merchandise and advertising and whatnot. But the reality is that behind him, there are thousands of smaller tech product reviewer content creators. But in other domains, specifically I think in politics, the field of political content creators has gotten so dense. There are so many political content creators. There's this chart that I'll put up here, but it shows the distribution of left and right content creators and their viewership or their earnings, I don't remember, on social media. And one thing that's really apparent from this graph, right, is that there is a crap ton of conservative, right-leaning, neocon, whatever you want to call them. There's a bunch of right-leaning content creators today. Now, I'm sure that individually these content creators may see each other as peers, as colleagues, but at the end of the day, they are all operating a business. Each one of them has to make money, and the reality is they only have so many viewers to go around and share. So every time one of these content creators posts something, they're not actually just trying to share a novel opinion. They're trying to grab a portion of the viewers that exist in their space. So given that all of this is downstream of needing to generate more views in order to generate more ad revenue, and you have this added pressure now of more and more content creators competing in the same space, there is an incentive to post more rage-baity, misinformative, or disinformative content onto the internet. All of these content creators are competing for the same cluster, the same echo chamber of viewers to drive them to watch their videos, to drive them to their platforms, and to make money off ads. The content creator space is simply just getting highly competitive. There's really a low barrier to entry, so anyone can enter it, and especially in a place like politics, where there actually isn't a correlation between how much time you spend researching and the amount of viewers you get, you can really have anyone enter the space. Anyone can become a political content creator with like zero political experience, education, or anything. You just buy some video gear and start saying stuff on the internet that agrees with people's priors. What really worries me though in this content creator space is what happens when all of this attempts to gain viewers through rage bait and misinformation just doesn't work anymore. What I'm concerned about is what happens when content creators start manufacturing the rage intentionally. So one clear opportunity is during any national event. This can be as major as a political violent event that takes place in the US to something as silly as Cracker Barrel changing their logo. There's this saying that every crisis is an opportunity. But if every opportunity comes with a financial incentive, then there is incentive to make crises. Whether the national event is something actually sad that's worth, acknowledging and talking about, or something as silly as a Cracker Barrel logo change, then content creators will make an opportunity out of it or make a crisis out of it. And there are multiple ways this manufactured rage can take place. The easiest way it takes place is just by abusing the information vacuum, right? When there isn't enough contents or information or details about a story, especially a breaking story, content creators will just make stuff up. You see this after every instance of political violence in the US. The factions will start attacking each other, or they'll start looking for little details that confirm it's the other side. The other approach that I've seen content creators start using is by screenshotting posts from other platforms. So previously, when almost every content creator was on Twitter, you could retweet someone, but then you can go check that tweet, right? You can actually see if it was like culturally relevant, whether it got a lot of likes or views. But now that the social media space has become so fragmented, content creators are just jumping between platforms and screenshotting posts without any context. And you can't link back to them easily to validate whether or not the post even makes sense to worry about. There was a recent example of this where Elon Musk retweeted a screenshot that was taken by a conservative pundit. And the conservative pundit screenshotted a post from Blue Sky that was saying some abhorrent stuff. I'll link the post down below, but you can also just check out my blog. I have a screenshot there. I don't want to post it in the video. But conveniently, what the pundit forgot to include was the likes, comments, and shares of that post from Blue Sky. That post had no likes, no shares, and the account wasn't even verified. It could have just been a bot. And the only point of not including this information is to stir up controversy. It's to spread rage and fear. It's to make like your viewers see that the other side is posting this horrible stuff and you should be afraid and you should be like, protective of yourself. And in this case, I do believe that the pundit actually went on Blue Sky, found the account, and screenshotted it. But that incident made me think that there's absolutely nothing stopping a content creator from actually just having their own Blue Sky account that they can use to post whatever crap they want to further their agenda. What is stopping content creators like Tim Pool and Matt Walsh from having secret Blue Sky accounts that they use specifically for spreading rage? When there's a national event, they could go onto their secret Blue Sky account, post some deranged stuff, and then screenshot it and post it on Twitter. The same is true for the other side, by the way. Like Midas Touch can do the same thing where they go on Twitter and just have a fake Twitter account. And to be clear, there are no laws preventing any of this from happening today. And there's clear financial incentives to do so. So I really think that this isn't a matter of if, but when. Eventually, content creators that are desperate to drum up views are going to do stuff like this. So it's really, it's really not looking good. And you might be asking yourself, well, what do you do in this space, right? And I've blogged previously about like the need for digital identifiers and the need for, I think, mandatory verification systems. But the reality is that I don't think we have a government right now that is interested in legislating the digital space at all. Like, I think it's just chaos for the next 3 years. But because of that, I think it's only more of our responsibility to make sure that we educate ourselves and our peers on, detecting misinformation, on media literacy, on making sure that people see that, the content creators that we follow, they have financial incentives to spread misinformation or to not tell the whole story. That's something I want to talk about in the future is like, what techniques do I use to detect misinformation or to evaluate whether a post makes sense giving any weight to. And if you'd be interested in those kind of tips and tricks, leave a comment down below. I'd also love to know, how do you go about verifying or evaluating the information that you see on social media, right? Like, do you look at things like likes and counts or like ratios of the different metrics on a post? Let me know in the comments down below. And again, if you want to hear more tech policy stuff or engage in more tech policy discussions, remember to like, subscribe to the channel, check out my Substack down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.